Good morning, family. How you doing? This is your brother Brian Mary D's. How you doing? How you doing? Let's start this off correctly. Peace to you, peace to your home, peace to your family, peace to your community, peace to your ancestry, peace to my community, peace to my ancestry, and peace to the nation that you, I, and they are building. Peace also to the guided forces, to the great spirit above, to the mother below. How y'all doing? I have tried to stay away from this R.Kelly stuff because truthfully, I've never been a person who follows celebrity. But growing up, you absorb certain things because you're like a sponge. You absorb everything. And there are things that um, I recall that for some reason people aren't wanting to talk about. So I also want to say before I get started that I have this personal rule. I've adopted it over the last couple of years to not try to criticize any other black person because of the system of racism, white supremacy that we are in. And that particularly when I see elders, people who I respect, saying things that I don't necessarily agree to, I look at their wisdom and their years of operating and say, okay, they probably understand this a little bit better than I do. So I'll deference to them. They can do what they're doing because they have me by some years. But I've listened to Boyce Watkins a lot over the last 4 or 5 years. And one of the things that the man is constantly doing, which absolutely bothers me, is he speaks, and I don't want to say this in a derogatory way to kind of, degrade the guy, because I don't think this is, a degrading aspect. But when he speaks about authority, when it comes to Bill Cosby and his guilt, and O.J. Simpson and his guilt, and R.Kelly and his guilt, there's a lot of these celebrities which he seems to think are guilty, black men who are guilty, and there's very, very few times that I've seen him when it comes to a celebrity say, "Wait a minute, I'm thinking this is," especially when you're talking about a big celebrity. There's very few times where I've ever seen him go, "Whoa," it seems like maybe they're after this guy for a while. There's very few, even, when you're talking about the street level person, he seems to take the approach of, okay, now maybe there's a little bit of something with this. But when you're talking about wealth, it's very rare that I see him defend, especially when you're talking about major crimes. I'm not talking about small stuff, and I don't, I'm not talking about stuff that, it blooms up suddenly. I'm talking about things that have come over the past 20, 25 years. And this to me is bothersome because he used to talk a lot about, well, not a lot about, but he would mention, there seems to be that he used to talk a bit about how white people attack black people. And it doesn't seem to move with celebrities. It's as if black celebrities, are protected from white people, in some of his conversations. But again, this isn't about him, and this isn't about attacking him. But he's indicative of a lot of black persons who are somewhat vying for leadership with black people, where all of them to a T are saying, all three of those people that I mentioned, guilty. Michael Jackson, guilty. All these people, not one of them are like, well, wait a minute. There is a history of attacking these people, of attacking these individuals. And so maybe we need to consider that this isn't necessarily 100% the truth. Now, with that said, let me disclaim this for any person who's out there like, oh my God, he's saying this about. Let me tell you, I'm not saying R.Kelly is not guilty, but there are a couple of things that I do want to remind you of, because one of the recent videos that I was watching from Dr. Watkins, he said, that these rumors have been around R. Kelly for 25 years. And, I was thinking that yesterday, actually, before he even said that. I was like, yeah, these things have been around for 25 years. But here's the thing. In 2001, was it 2001? Yes, in 2001, a couple of weeks before September 11th, 2001, a couple of weeks before September 11th, a plane went down. Who was on that plane? Give you a couple seconds to think about that. A plane went down. Who was on that plane? Aaliyah. Aaliyah was on that plane. When Dr. Watkins talks about these things being around for 25 years, the first people that he's talking about is the first person he's talking about is Aaliyah. Remember, we have to remember, rich white people don't plan for 2 years. They plan for 20 and 25 and 30 years. They plan for your shadow, and they also plan for your star. So if they can use you, they will prop you up. And someone like Boyz Watkins knows this. He's talked about this. They'll prop you up. That's your star. They're planning for your star. And they'll have the plan for you for the next 20 years if you follow it. But the moment that they can't use you, that second plan, the shadow, comes into play. Now, people seem to forget. And I am not watching Surviving R. Kelly. I'm not doing it. And the reason why I'm not doing it is because I've watched so much crap over the years that it's just been one attack after the other on black men. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And the fact that all these things, you got Surviving R. Kelly, you got the one on OJ, I guarantee they're working on a big one about Bill Cosby. Now, mind you, before I get back into the Aaliyah thing, where is the in-depth coverage of Harvey Weinstein? Where is Surviving Harvey Weinstein? Where is the blanket coverage for Harvey Weinstein? This man who is more... I've had this conversation with people, ladies and gentlemen, and for somebody like Mr. Watkins, Boyz Watkins, who, these people were preying on black people in the community. You telling me that Harvey Weinstein wasn't preying on black women? From what I heard about the guy, he liked to F anything that walked. But he particularly liked women. So you telling me that this man, who was far more powerful than Bill Cosby and R. Kelly, seriously? But he's protected. He's protected. So let's go back to R. Kelly. Let's go back to Aaliyah. 25 years ago, they planted that story. Oh, he loves children. Look, he married Aaliyah. What did Aaliyah say? Aaliyah came out and broke that story and said, hell no. I lied to him. I told him I was older. I lied to him. Maybe she was just protecting him. So wait a minute. Now you're telling me that everyone lying. You got a black face. All you doing is lying. So R. Kelly lying, Aaliyah lying. Aaliyah shut that down. Shut it down. Now, it's kind of ironic. It's kind of ironic because for years I have been suspicious of that tape of R. Kelly peeing on that girl. Because that was the definitive evidence. You have no definitive evidence for any other celebrity. None. Which is kind of funny because no one asks, okay, why the hell were they taping that at a party where you got underage girls, and how was that leaked? You telling me, right now you got Epstein, who we know liked little girls. They ain't as little as, supposedly the ones R. Kelly likes, but he was around that 14, 15 area too. You telling me there ain't no photographs and no videotape of that man doing what he was doing with them little girls? And the same thing with Mr. Weinstein. And you telling me none of that got leaked? You have white pedophiles all over this country. You have CEOs, what was it, over 10 years ago now, I was watching Dateline or 60 Minutes or one of them, and they did a story in I either Vietnam or Taiwan, or it was some Asian country, where all of these rich CEOs would go over to have sex with and to be pleasured by little girls. Little girls ranging from the age of 5 to what we would consider legal, 16. But 5, 6, 7, oh, excuse me, I said 5. 4. There was a little girl that had been bought in. She was an orphan, 4 years old. And one of the older girls, 14-ish, had to show her how to properly give a man a blowjob. When asked, one of the undercover sex worker, who was actually legal, she was 16-ish, 16 or 17. When asked about who primarily frequented the establishment she was in, which, by the way, was protected by the police, she said it was a lot of white businessmen. And this is not unheard of. But you're going to tell me that this less famous guy, this famous guy named R.Kelly, suddenly gets a tape dropped on him. Something don't smell right. When you got these white guys running around here raping all these little girls, and you ain't got a picture on them, you ain't got a photo on them, you ain't got an image on them, you ain't got a video on them, you ain't got nothing. But this guy, you got enough for a 6-part DVD or a 6-part documentary. Something don't smell right. So again, remember, Aaliyah blew this up 25 years ago. If we're going to tell the story, let's tell the story. Let's tell the story. Now, it's kind of ironic. Again, I mentioned the video for this reason. And I don't, let me see if I can find this real quick. Hang on. All right. So I was actually able to find it. I'll try to put a link down below. Here's the reason why I brought up the video, actually, other than the fact that I wanted to point out the reality that they are not uncovering these white CEOs who have been molesting these children for a long time. But for some reason, they're always finding black people who are doing these things. So that's an odd point, and that needs to be stated. But I was watching a video. Ironically, a bunch of videos from this YouTube channel called Secure Team. And these videos primarily deal with unknown things, mostly UFOs, stuff like that. And he did a video called, what is that video called? Nothing is Real Anymore. Again, Secure Team, SECURETEAM, Secure Team. Nothing is real anymore. And he talks about this AI technology, which is just now surfacing. Now, I'm using that specific phraseology purposely. This AI technology that is just now surfacing. Where AI, for those of you not involved in computers, it's our artificial intelligence, will search hundreds, if not thousands, of images of your face. Photos, video, whatever. And it will take those searches and it will construct a pliable mask to be utilized in real time. Well, real recorded time on video. What does this mean? What am I saying? What I'm saying is, using computer technology, they can search hundreds or thousands of photographs with your likeness and videos with your likeness, and then take those photographs to construct this image, which they can then superimpose on another image, on a video, which will then move and bend in shape like a real face on that video. Do you understand what I'm saying? These things, as he was explaining in the video, are called deep fakes. And right now, the reason why I said that the technology just now surfaced is because it's making its rounds with a lot of guys who are really adept at using AI and technology. And they're using it for what you probably would imagine you would use something like this for if you were technologically involved, not active that much with women. What do you think they're using it for? They're taking their favorite actresses, taking their faces, and then putting it into pornos. That's what they're doing with it. But the reason why I say it just is now surfacing is because one of the things that people like Phil Valentine has been saying, and it stands to reason. I mean, if you just know anything about the business cycle, and if you know anything about wealthy people, a lot of the technology that we now have, the forerunners for it was available 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It wasn't to the extent as it maybe is now, but we have to understand that a lot of the technology that we have is a lot older than we think it is. And I want you to think, if this technology is just now surfacing, that means they've been wanting to do this for 40, 50 years probably, and they've probably been able to do it to some extent for 30 years. Now, that is the reason why I brought up this videotape, because we are inclined to say, from 15 years out, oh my God, that's incredible. They couldn't have done that. That's impossible. Ladies and gentlemen, they've been able to do a lot of things that we consider incredible today. I'll give you a great example. I was watching an old football game from 1991, I think it was. And there was actually a commercial for a laptop. 1991. Now, of course, it didn't look like the laptops that we have today. It probably, I guarantee it didn't have the storage and anything. But again, that's 1991. Laptops didn't become, forget about available, because they've been available for since the late 90s. They've been available, but they didn't become widely used and distributed until about 2010. Think about that. 2010, you're talking about almost 20 years. So you're telling me that this new imaging software, which just rose over the last couple of years, which just surfaced over the last couple of years, you're telling me that this wasn't being used 15 years ago? That this wasn't being used 20 years ago to some degree? Now, something else that a lot of you probably don't remember, and forgive me because I know I'm gonna butcher the year on this, because I only saw one episode of this. I am not a reality TV guy. I'm not a fan of reality TV. But a couple of years ago, jeepers, in my early 20s, I probably was 21 or 22, so that would have been, I think I was 21, so that would have been 2003-ish. Coming home from work one night, I turned on the TV. Maybe even it wasn't coming home from work. All I know is I watched this show. It was the middle of the summer. And it was on, I think, Fox. And the show was this. The premise of the show was this. They would take celebrity lookalikes and have them do crazy things in public. Like the one episode that I remember is they had a fight occur between Janet Jackson and Madonna in public. And I remember thinking to myself, man, that's a hell of a premise. People are going to be talking about that for days because they thought that these were real celebrities. Imagine what kind of tabloids what kind of people contacted, or not what kind of people, but who contacted the tabloid and told them what? What kind of stories could have been planted in the tabloid just from this thing that they were doing? Years later, reflecting on this show, I said, man, that's a hell of a piece of propaganda. Let's think about that. That's a hell of a piece of propaganda. If you put two celebrities and you have them fighting each other, you can actually see how the masses would respond to something by just following the circuit pattern of who these individuals tell. You can see that. And it would blow your mind if you were into studying sociology. You can see how far rumor flies. That show didn't last very long, by the way. But it was on, and I got to see that one episode. Am I saying, R.Kelly is the victim of all this? I'm saying that the possibility is there. As Boyz Watkins did point out, this has been a 25-year thing. Well, let me ask you something. When was the last time the media allowed black people to pick their own leaders? When was the last time the media allowed the black people to pick their own leaders? Now, I don't want to delve off into that aspect so much, but R. Kelly in the early 2000s got into a lot of trouble because he started wanting to do specific type of music. He wanted to do specific type of music, and they wouldn't let him do that. When he did Step in the Name of Love, that was kind of his homage to Marvin Gaye, and he started moving his music towards that. He was trying to go in that direction. They stopped him. I think it was 2000, 2001, R. Kelly had recorded 7 albums. I think it was 7 albums. Each one of them had a different feel and mood inspired by a different continent. Each one of them had a different feel and mood inspired by a different continent. I remember reading this in the Source magazine, in a big write-up about him and his musical genius. And he was supposed to release those back in, it had to be 99, 2000, 2001-ish, around there. Those albums never appeared. Never appeared. Remember him being called the Pied Piper of R&B, Follow Me? All of this was this renewed image to get him away from that thug image that had been impressed on him. And yet, just when he started trying to make those moves, that's when these old Aaliyah-based accusations of him liking little girls crept up. That's when suddenly it became, he's a child molester. He's a child pedophile. And I gotta imagine at that time, R. Kelly was like, shit, you have no proof of that. Are you serious? I'm a pedophile? You have no proof of this. And then suddenly, boom, here comes this video. Now look, again, this isn't me saying the man is guilty or innocent, but these are things that I notice. These are things that I see. And instead of hiding and not saying what they are, I'm going to say what the hell they are, because I see a lot of guys running out here, and it's funny. I get it. They're busy. They got all this going on. They got all that going on. I get that. But if you're going to talk definitively about this stuff, let's be open and let's be honest about it. If the FBI, white folks, were willing to doctor a photo and put Martin Luther King in it to try to degrade his credibility in the black community, and this was in the 1960s, what are they willing to do today to control what is undoubtedly the most financially lucrative entertainment sector in the world, and that is black entertainment. Don't get it twisted, family. It's not about entertainment. It's about black entertainment. If you took every black person and you segregated them from the rest of entertainment and you said, this is our entertainment, that's y'all's. Y'all have fun making money off of yours. We're going to have fun making money off of ours. In a year, Hollywood would be crippled. In a year, Hollywood would be crippled. You take everybody who works in Hollywood. See, people don't tell you this. You take all the big name black actors and actresses and even the smaller names, and then you take the people who are working behind the scenes and you let us produce our own stuff. And then you do that also with music. I'm sorry, I forgot music. You do that also with music. It's game. It's game. It's over. We won that. You can't have black people controlling their own entertainment because that would destroy the rest of entertainment. And if you don't believe me, go back to the 70s. Go back to the 70s. If white musicians didn't start acting like black blues and rock and roll artists, you wouldn't know people like the Rolling Stones. You wouldn't know people like the Rolling Stones. All of these old 1970s groups that people love, all of these white groups, guess what? They all sound like black blues and rock and roll artists. That whole sound is black blues and rock and roll. Aerosmith, brought this up before. He's a great example of that. His voice, all of that is black. All of it. All of it. And if you don't know real black music from that time period, then you wouldn't know that. But all of that's black. You can't have black people controlling their own stuff. Plus, if you allow black people to control entertainment, I'm talking music now, really more so than movies, but both of them, that changes our mindset. And that's the major danger. You have somebody like R.Kelly who was real and probably still is. He put out an album a couple of years ago that was fashioned after our classical R&B and soul sounds. Decent album. But if you have somebody like that who can do that type of music, it changes the dynamics of black people. If you allow that to run rampant and you replace all of this nonsense that is not black music with our real black music. They call it soul music for a reason, y'all. And I find it amazingly frustrating that people such as Dr. Watkins, I've seen the Irritated Genie speak on this, individuals like this who want to say, well, I stand up for black people. And yeah, I believe they do stand up for black people. They don't think that this is strange. They don't seem to put it into their mind. It's easier to not believe in conspiracies sometimes because, life gets very, very much more complicated when you have to believe in conspiracies. Then again, if you don't believe in the aspect of conspiracy, then nothing ever gets done because we don't find out everything, and that's a conspiracy when you plan behind the scenes and then you bring it out to public. So maybe it's easier not to believe in conspiracies for these guys because, it has to be all true because 25 years of them saying this, it just has to be true. When you don't see them making, again, documentaries about Epstein, Weinstein, and these other pedophiles that we know exist. We don't see that. When they dedicate as much time to slandering a known killer, a known white killer, as they have to slandering O.J. Simpson, or known pedophiles, white pedophiles, as they have to slandering R.Kelly, or known white rapists, as they have to Bill Cosby, then I'll start to believe what they say is true. Because you're dealing with people who love to lie. Love to lie. And in fact, will tell you bold face, not even joking. A lie is truth. So I wanted to bring all that out to light, guys, because you've been hearing all of this other stuff. I wanted you to remember this stuff, this other stuff, because you don't hear anybody, just like with Bill Cosby, you hear nobody defending R. Kelly. You hear nobody. And I find that weird. I do. I find that weird that there isn't at least a couple people standing up who know the guy, who's like, listen, this seems insane. You know, remember 25 years ago, they tried to say this stuff with Aaliyah, but Aaliyah was like, yeah, F y'all. I ain't doing that. And that goes to another point. I don't even trust Jay-Z on any of this because Jay-Z has always been a crooked little SOB. Always. Aaliyah couldn't be around him like that because of that's how slimy he is. So before you start talking to me about that, realize I'm not saying the man's innocent or guilty. I'm just making sure that you guys remember all this. History is important. If you're going to talk about stuff that doesn't matter, which I consider celebrity news stuff that doesn't matter, at least if you're going to be involved in it, be involved in it. Get your information right. Get your information right. And recall the small stuff that challenges the narrative. Because the narrative isn't always set in stone. Things happen where they have to change it periodically. And then they have to come back to it. And it's when they're trying to figure out which way they want to push the narrative, that's when they make the mistakes. So remember Aaliyah. By the way, that was a Boyz II Men song. Boyz II Men did a song called Remember Aaliyah, which was, you know, it was all right. It wasn't that good, but it was decent. And it's funny because it's like, well, why remember Aaliyah? What did Aaliyah really do? I mean, she was here. She was an actress for a minute. She was a singer, but she was old. Who was Aaliyah? Why were they saying Remember Aaliyah? Look that song up. Remember Aaliyah by Boyz II Men. All right, guys. I'm out of here. Have a great day. Peace.